My remarks will be brief. You know, if you're from Illinois, you're probably not used to your elected official standing before you and speaking from the heart, as opposed to a teleprompter. Maybe it's because I've only been in Congress for less than 2 years, but it seems that coming from Illinois and going to Washington, D.C., the more time I spend out there, the more I sense that the Illinois way has infected Washington, D.C. From the corruption to the thuggery to the anti-free market business principles that has made our country great, there is an assault on American values that you and I have taken for granted. And I know that's why so many of you are here tonight, and I thank you for that. As someone who has run and been successful, I will tell you I'm standing here today because of thousands of volunteers and supporters like yourself who decided not just to wave signs and come to marches and protests, but more importantly, decided to get involved. Decided to just not talk the talk, but to walk the walk and actually get engaged, get involved, and ultimately vote. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, that is what is at stake. Now, I will tell you that the first 2 years has been pretty interesting. 3 weeks after I was sworn into office and 2 weeks after the president took the oath of office, I got a call from the White House and an invitation. The president was going back to my hometown of Peoria, Illinois, the day before his much-acclaimed stimulus bill, and he wanted me to come along for a ride. Now, perhaps they thought that the youngest member of Congress was also the most gullible. I have to tell you, Air Force One is pretty nice. But I've been flying commercial ever since. As he stood on that factory floor at Caterpillar Tractor Company in Peoria, Illinois, he promised the American people that this was going to be the largest infrastructure investment since Eisenhower was president. Less than 8% of the bill went to infrastructure. He promised that this bill was going to regentrify the American economy, that it was going to be a 2-year boost to the private sector, reinstill confidence, and put Americans back to work. And of course, that famed number, he was going to keep unemployment below 8%. Well, I want to bring this up to you because I want to talk about leadership. I remember how my colleagues in Washington, D.C. looked at this president who at that point was rock star status, had over 80% popularity. The American people were enamored by him, and everybody said, gee, how do we oppose this bill even though we know it's not good? And I'm here to tell you that I couldn't have been more proud of my members of Congress that I served with in the Republican Party, because every single one of us stood up and did the right thing and voted against that stimulus bill. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just Republicans saying that the stimulus bill is bad, but it's Democrats alike. In fact, more Americans believe that Elvis Presley is alive than believe that the stimulus bill created jobs. True story. Then, of course, we moved on to the much talked about cap and trade proposal. You know what bothers me is sometimes I come home and people say to me, you know, Aaron, does it really matter who gets elected? You know, Republicans, Democrats, does it really matter? Well, is anybody asking that question today? There is a fundamental different worldview between where the Republican Party and the Democratic Party stands. And ladies and gentlemen, the American people have gotten a rude awakening as a result of 2 years of unchecked power by one party in the United States government. Do we believe we need energy independence? Absolutely. But do we believe we're going to get there by taxing the heck out of our fossil fuels and the energy we've got today? You got to be kidding me. Think about the Department of Energy, a federal agency created 30 years ago with the sole purpose of what? Making us more energy independent. And now a department which costs us several $100 billion a year of your taxpayer money that has been in existence for over 30 years, and we are now less energy independent than we were 30 years ago. What would you do as an employer? Fired. It is a case in point example, ladies and gentlemen, that it's not more government that is going to solve our solutions, but it's actually going to be private entrepreneurs and the private sector that leads us to energy independence. One example, of course, is nuclear power. We can become completely electricity independent as a country through nuclear power. We buy 60% of our electricity from our northern neighbor, Canada. Now, while they're a friendly neighbor, I would argue that money would be much better spent in our own economy. But for the uncertainty as a result of poor regulation in the government, private industry and the private sector is not investing in this market and has not built a new nuclear plant in over 20 or 30 years simply because of the uncertainty. And so policymakers do have a role, not in creating things, but rather in getting out of the way and creating certainty in the market so the private entrepreneurs who create jobs and create energy can do their work. And then finally, of course, the other big bill after cap and trade was health care. Now, you know, there was a lot of discussion about, well, the Republican Party is just the party of no. You guys got no ideas. You're not for change. You're not for reform. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear anybody saying there weren't problems. But there was a fundamental worldview difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party on what we ought to do when it comes to health care. And that health care bill, in its several thousand pages, has a lot more to do than just health care for you. And I know many of you that are in the small business sector know about the 1099 provision. You know about all the onerous taxes and fees. And you know about the 1,000 times in the bill that it says, the secretary shall. Now, do you know what that means? That means there's a rule coming that you and I don't have anything to say about that some unelected bureaucrat gets to make the decision on. And so there's no question why those in the insurance industry and the private sector and small businesses throw up their hands and say, we don't know how this bill is going to affect us. But we do know one thing. If you take 30 million Americans who have no health insurance today and you automatically qualify them for a government program, a program that does not adequately reimburse the private sector for the true cost of care, your private health insurance is going to go up. And now the White House and the Democrats in Congress are no longer saying this health care bill will reduce your costs, because guess what? They know it won't. And now not just Republicans are saying, hey, I voted no, this is a bad bill, but Democrats are saying, I voted no too. Apparently, the party of no has become a lot more popular. But you know, we need better ideas. We can't just be the party of no. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that if you're questioning whether we've got them, we do. And there's not any better discussion going on right now about the future of our country and which way our economy is going to go, up or down, than the debate right now over tax policy. You know, I have to scratch my head because the Democrats say, you know, gee, we just can't extend these Bush-era tax cuts. We just can't extend these tax cuts for the upper income earners. And I struggle because they seem to be so smart on other tax policy. They seem to get the fact that if you raise taxes on cigarette sales, you get less smoking. They proposed a cap-and-trade energy tax on carbon to get less carbon. And they recently have now come out with a proposed tax on the oil industry to reduce the demand for oil. So why is it so hard to understand that if you take the top earners from 35% to 39%, the overwhelming majority who are small business owners, that you're going to have less savings, less investment, less hiring, less jobs, and less economic growth. This is a debate I look forward to having. This is a debate that the majority of Americans are on our side, and this is a majority, ladies and gentlemen, that after November will make sure that those tax cuts remain permanent. Now, that was just his domestic agenda. I don't have time for the international agenda. But I don't know about you, I'm ready for leadership in Washington, D.C. that doesn't apologize for America, that believes in Americans' exceptionalism, that's willing to stand up to our enemies, grasp arm in arm with our friends, and understand who is really a threat to America. Who is willing to stand up and confront the rogue states of Iran, of North Korea, and not the state of Arizona. So there is much at stake. And as I said when I opened my remarks, at the end of the day, it comes down to who has the votes on Election Day. You know, I got a funny saying because I come from Illinois. I always tell people, you know, when they say, Aaron, we support you, I say, vote early and vote often. We are going to need your votes. We're going to need the votes of your friends and neighbors. And we're going to need the votes of people that you don't even know are your friends and neighbors. And the beauty that you've got, ladies and gentlemen, as frustrated as we've been these last 2 years, as depressing as it has been to watch what's gone on in Washington, D.C., the silver lining is that we live in a country where we can do something about it. And I will tell you, I'm reminded as I serve in Congress and I see the dysfunction, I say, you know what? This law body and these lawmakers is our country's alternative to violence. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you, it's up to us, and I look forward to working with you to turn it around. And ladies and gentlemen, we have some great candidates all across the country, but right here in Illinois as well. You know, the political pundits and the media focused on Illinois last year. They called it ground zero for the Obama campaign. Well, I believe it will be ground zero once again. It will be ground zero for the Republican majority coming back to Congress, and it's going to start with races all across Illinois. Please help me welcome to the stage candidates who are here tonight running for Congress. Randy Hultgren in the 14th Congressional District. Joe Walsh in the 8th District. Israel Vasquez in the 4th District. David Radowitz in the 5th District. And Isaac Hayes in the 2nd District. Ladies and gentlemen, you can help yourselves and you can help me restore America by helping these candidates. God bless. I look forward to working with all of you and restoring America. Good night.
Let's help get these guys elected.